Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Daniella Gordan. And Daniella, I'm just going to let you take the floor and just
Of
share your story.
course,
Okay.
of course. So back in 1997, um, my son, who was 5 at the time, two of my nephews, and my husband, who was in a truck behind us because he had to bring a ladder over to the family holiday dinner we were going to. He was in the truck behind us. My nephews wanted to go with me as they always loved spending time with me. And I had my son in the car. When we had left the house, driving on one of the main roads to go to the family dinner, an old man had ran a stop sign and literally crashed into us. It was a horrific car accident where a lot of people stopped, and my understanding was 911 had never received so many calls like this accident. Um, when the man struck my vehicle, he hit it on the right side of the front end of the car. However, the impact came in on the left side. Thank goodness, because that's where I was driving the vehicle. And had it had hit it a little bit more on the right, I would have been living a life of a nightmare because that's where my son was. After the impact, I literally got crushed into my chest and abdomen area. My leg was caught under the dashboard. My son was bleeding a little bit under his nose. My husband immediately got out of the truck and ran over to us. And he went over to my son because he could see visible blood. And he did the absolute right thing, as any mother would sacrifice her life for her child. So he did the right thing. At that time, I realized I couldn't breathe anymore. I couldn't even expand my lungs to get any oxygen in at all. I just couldn't do it. And I realized that this is it. This is where I'm going to die. And I remembered looking around at my nephews and my son and just looking at them and just feeling blessed that they were okay. But I couldn't breathe, Peggy, for the life of me. Um, and all of a sudden, then the next thing that happened after realizing that I couldn't breathe, um, my whole entire life flashed in front of me, which seemed like a split second, but it was so large. It was so much, literally my entire life. And then after that it happened, um, wow, it's hard going back to that. After that had happened, I knew I was dying, dead. After that review, I ended up somewhere that I didn't recognize, I never saw in my lifetime, had no idea what it was. Um, I did not see any lights. I did not have anyone helping me cross over like I know some people have had. I did not have that experience. However, when I landed there, it was the most peaceful place. Sorry. Unlike anything we have here, it was the most peaceful place. And I remember feeling a presence. It was very male dominant presence. However, I did not see a man, who was very protective, very loving, um, very peaceful. I've had many people try to ask me, can you explain that peacefulness? And I would ask them, what truly makes you peaceful? And I get many responses. Some might say, lighting a candle or taking a bath or listening to certain music. So in response, I would say to them, try to multiply that by infinity. And as you see, that's impossible. But that's truly how it was, my experience. Also, upon arriving there, um, I remember looking around, but I had a strong knowing without, you could call it mental telepathy, but it wasn't anyone speaking to me. It was basically knowing that I had to look at my physical body and say goodbye to it. I remember my head was on the left side, my feet were to the right, and I was across from my body. I never felt any type of floating sensation or anything, but I realized my eyes were closed. Um, I wasn't breathing, and I was saying goodbye for good to that physical body, even though our physical body, even here, is dead. It's just the vessel that's carrying our soul. So once out of my body and saying goodbye to my physical body, I remember looking around everywhere, just because I didn't know where I was. And it was an incredible feeling. And I looked around everywhere, and everything was in great contrasts of grays, blacks, and whites. Um, Looking far ahead, it was infinity, which I feel blessed to be able to have seen what infinity looks like. Also, I did take note that there were absolutely no windows, no ceiling, no floors. There was no temperature. There was no time, no schedule, and absolutely no worry or fear of anything. I also remember uh, saying to myself, my God, this is home. This is truly home. We all have a home here, but that's home where I was. Um, After looking around, I was also very, and I feel very privileged for this experience. I was able, given the opportunity, to look down on Earth. And when I look down on Earth, I'm talking about every city, every state, every country in the world. From up there, it looks so small, but I was able to see how each individual, regardless of who they are, where they're from, had a purpose, and they were going to stay on Earth until they fulfilled their purpose. After a lot of download of information, and this I would have to literally probably write one or two books to get all that information in there. All of a sudden I was presented with colors, beautiful colors. And we have absolutely beautiful colors here on Earth, and artists do amazing with their work in incorporating so many variations of colors. However, the colors there are just so vivid, so bright, so different. Um, just absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous, mind blowing, literally mind blowing. After getting all the download of information, saying goodbye to my body, being able to see a lot of different things that do go on Earth with explanations and understanding, and after being presented with colors, I remember after looking at my body again to leave my body as I was going somewhere. My body started, well, not my body, it would be my soul. So I just want to make sure that that's understood, because my soul never stayed in my dead physical body. It completely came out, and that's where all the observations, the knowledge, and the information came in to my soul, not my physical body. At one point, my soul started to turn at about a 35 to 40 degree angle to the left as I was leaving and no longer going back into that physical body. However, that was also at the moment where I got pulled back. I was in the trauma unit with tons of doctors, nurses, so many people in the room. And they tried to stabilize me. It took them over 6 hours to stabilize me. And as I understood from my husband, who was running back and forth from me to my son, because we did take him to the emergency room, he was taken there to make sure he was okay. So my husband was literally running back and forth between the two of us. And at one point, they did talk to my husband and tell them that we don't know if we're going to be able to save her, but we're doing everything we can to stabilize her right now. And they eventually did. It was a little bit, I think, after midnight, after about 6 hours. The aftermath of all that was horrendous. I had sustained so many internal injuries. I actually stopped counting at 30, 35 surgeries, but realistically, between the surgeries and all the invasive procedures that I had to go through, I'm probably easily in the 50s at the least. However, I thank all of them all the time because they did save me. I had to go through over 10 years of physical therapy, aqua therapy. I had to literally learn how to breathe correctly again, as I couldn't expand. And I was doing very shallow breathing. I had to learn how to, move my arms properly, my legs. It was a long process. I was in a wheelchair.
Did a spinal injury?
I did have a spinal internal. I had a lot of injuries. I lost a lot of parts of my body that I bled internally from. They did try to operate and save certain parts of my body that would just start to bleed internally from the impact and the injuries. They just couldn't function properly. So I did end up losing all my fallopian tubes, my ovaries, my uterus, and this was over a period of time um, because of the injuries, and they just wouldn't work properly. That I was literally bleeding to death. So I would come home after a surgery or having to be rushed to the emergency room, and then a week or two later, I'm back in the operating room. I also had a lot of complications with pregnancy. I had 4 miscarriages due to the complications. All of my kids were born very premature. One was 1 pound, 2 ounces, one was 2 pound, 12 ounces, and one was 4 pounds, 14 ounces. However, the big blessing is they've all done well with absolutely no problems, as they were supposed to have
Oh, good.
an enormous amount of problems, and they did not. That even the pediatrician said, Danielle, you've got to write a book for these parents because we can't figure out what you did to have them thrive at such a level that they did and get to where they are. So I couldn't be more grateful for that. That's the most important thing here with all this, is that my kids are okay and they're amazing.
So you had the miscarriages in between these births, or?
Yes, I did. It was very hard. I was also on bed rest with my pregnancies, so I was in the Trem-Dumberg position, which is head down, feet up, to keep the babies inside. However, that didn't work. My injuries were pretty severe, but I couldn't even get out of the hospital bed for months. So it was eating, everything you could think of had to be done in bed. It was very hard, but it was worth it. So I will never complain about it because I got 3 amazing angels here. And, now they're older. They're 19, 24, and 31, and they're all excelling and great careers, great education, and just doing amazing. I
Oh, you're
still,
a 5-year-old. How old's he now? Or
he's
is he the,
31.
he's the 31?
He's my 31-year-old.
Okay, I got 19, 24, 31. But now the one born 1 pound, 2 ounces, 1 pound,
My
12,
24-year-old.
and the 4 pound,
My
they all made it.
19. My
Okay, so there's 4
19.
kids, so I'm trying to figure out the age of the other one.
Three.
Oh, okay.
19, 24, and 31.
Oh, so your 5-year-old was born at 4 pounds. I'm sorry. I'm funny about these things.
2 pounds, 12 ounces.
Oh, okay, so you had a little baby before your accident.
I
Your
did.
son was okay.
I did. And my understanding was that that happens quite often with a first pregnancy.
Okay.
But what happened with the injuries in the accident is why the other two were also very premature. With my 19-year-old, after having the 1 pound, 2 ounces, with my 19-year-old, I actually had to go through a significant surgery while pregnant, which is very dangerous. But, and this is what enabled, made it possible for her to stay in me up to 4 pounds, 14 ounces.
Oh, okay.
It was a hard, rough road altogether with that, but it's like I said, it's a blessing. I couldn't ask for better with that. I was in a wheelchair off and on quite a bit. Had to use cane for a while, and after coming back and really, really receiving some great gifts that I'm able to share with a lot of people, I also, of course, used on myself. And what I'm referring to is mediumship, healing through my hands, also medical intuition. I get everything as visuals. So if I am with a client, for example, that has been to doctors 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and they can't get helped, they have exhausted every mean, those are usually the ones that get referred to me. And when I do a medical intuition scan, I look and see exactly what is going on, and I get all the visuals. And my statistic across the board with people that have not been able to be helped, pardon me, they get better within 3 months, back to before, whether it was trauma, whether it was an injury, whether it's something within, it could have been cancer, it could be a lot of different things. Within 3 months, they do amazing.
You realize this ability after your NDE?
Yes. And the
How did you,
mediumship,
huh?
the
Oh,
healing, the medical
okay.
intuition, the understanding, really good with problem solving that is difficult for a lot. I'm also ordained where I can do weddings and happy, celebrations as well. I am officiated, and I did that on the spiritual end, as well as because of my experience, it actually inspired me to go back and get more education. As when I was in college, I took psychology, and then I moved on to radiology, which I practiced in the trauma unit, intensive care, operating room, critical care. Mainly trauma was my specialty in orthopedics. So I really love doing that. And I thought, wow, this is great. This is a great life and everything. But after this situation, I realized it was a little bit more for me. There's a bigger purpose here. And that became very clear to me. So I did go back to school. I'm about 4 months away of my doctorate degree with metaphysics. And it just, going through the educational part of it and all the modules and everything, it just came to me so naturally that I flew through it to the point where the instructors were like, wow, it just was natural because I had that understanding from passing away. I didn't know I was a medium until a situation happened actually when I brought my 1 pound, 2 ounce baby, once he was able to come home. There was a situation the first night that he came home, Peggy, where I breastfed all my kids. And after breastfeeding him, I always kept a bassinet next to me because of the risk of, having a baby sleep in the bed. That could be very, very dangerous for the baby, especially if the parents are asleep. So I always kept a bassinet right on my side of the bed next to me. So once I finished breastfeeding David and he had fallen asleep, I, put him gently into the bassinet and laid down. This was the first experience, and it scared me half to death until I got greater understanding. There was a silhouette of a man's body at the doorway. So my bed was facing the doorway where I could see the silhouette. The man presented himself wearing an all black suit and a black top hat, which is one of those taller kind of hats, but he would not show me his face. However, he made it very clear to me that if I looked down on his feet, I would know exactly who he was. And I did look down at his feet, and what I saw were shoes. He had, his 2 pair of shoes on. However, the end part of the shoe, like where your toes would be, weren't there. So I had no idea who this was. And all I could do is just beg him to leave, because his whole intention, and I understood that telepathically, was all he wanted to do was come close to the bassinet and look at David. But I had no idea who this was or what it was. So I did ask him to leave pretty persistently, and he did respect that. And he did leave. The next morning, I was so distraught that I called my mom, I called my dad, I spoke with several family members to ask them if there's anyone that they know that had this kind of appearance with their shoes, because I'd never seen anything like that. And no one could figure out anything. When my husband got home from work, he saw how upset and distraught I was. And he asked me what was going on. And I said to him, please come sit down for a minute. I need to talk to you about what happened here last night. So I explained to him exactly what I just shared with you. And he looked at me, he goes, do you know who that was? And I said, no, I've been trying to find answers all day. He said, that's my grandfather. Now, Peggy, mind you, my husband's mother passed away when he was 6 years old, sadly. I never got to meet any of his family aside from his father and brothers. I never got to meet anyone at all. So he said to me, that's my grandfather. And I said, well, how do you know? He said, because everything that you're saying is identical to him, meaning what he was trying to tell me was his grandfather actually had gangrene on his toes from some infection, and they had to remove all his toes, and he had custom shoes made. That's when I realized I need to talk to somebody, because this was a little bit more than I ever experienced ever in my lifetime in that way. So I did. I reached out to my spiritual leader and a couple other ones, and luckily one of them actually worked with a lot of people that have had near-death experiences. And what he explained to me was that when I crossed over and got pulled back, I never shut the door behind me. So that's always going to stay open. Now, he was very considerate in respect to me as a soul and how I feel about that. So he did question me and ask me, Daniella, does this scare you? And I said, well, this scared me a lot, but the way you're explaining it, no, because I feel peaceful, because I've had other situations that occurred That was the first significant real situation that hit home pretty much on that level. But I told him no, because through other experiences, they've really helped me a lot and have showed me things. And I mean, I could go on, with that, but I don't think that that's so important as the first, and realizing, okay, now I have this mediumship ability as well. However, it's been a blessing again, between the medical intuition, between the energy that does come out of my hand with the healings, um, I and problem solving, and spiritual counseling as well as counseling. I have literally been able to help so many people around the world, and that is the biggest blessing here through all this. And after a long time, I realized, the psychology, the radiology, it was a part of me then, but I had a greater purpose. And part of me being in that accident and going through all the things that I did was just part of reaching my purpose here. And I've never been so at peace with my life as I am uh, fulfilling this purpose, which has
So,
been huge.
do people know about you to reach out and have these healings, readings, and
Absolutely, absolutely. I have people reaching out to me from Australia, Austria, Africa, New Zealand, Israel. I could name Thailand. I could keep on going. And the greatest thing here, Peggy, is I've never had to advertise. It's always been word of mouth. Now, even through, we were talking about podcasts before we started, even through my podcast, I don't advertise, but people that have watched it have reached out to me. Um, and I've helped quite a few through that as well. And that's the true blessing, because I don't advertise it. I get busy without having to do that, just from word of mouth. And I owned a business also a long time ago, and we would do minimal advertising. But if there's one thing I can say that I'm really grateful about, is word of mouth is the best advertisement, because you're talking to people that have had true experiences with me, that have had true healing, that have been able to transform their entire life into such better quality of life in many ways. So that has been a true blessing. And I can say that everything that I went through was worth it from day one of starting to help people with the immense amount of knowledge and information that was shared with me to be able to do what I do today. As before, I was never able to do things like that. I mean, I was always good at talking with people and understanding, but this is a lot bigger, you know. And if there's one thing I can say, um, that aside from all the hardships, aside from all the major battles of just trying to survive with all these injuries and all these things, is that every bit of it was worth it. Every bit of it was worth it. And the most important thing, without going into so much more, because it would take books to write about, is while we're here, the most important things is to approach everything with love, is to approach everything with respect, with truly trying to understand other souls as they all have their own journeys, and never ever judge. Never judge. Those are the most important things, aside from all the other knowledgeable information and blessings. Those are truly, if I could bring this across so loudly, that when you your soul is interacting with other souls, to always remember love, respect, understanding, and no judgment. You will be surprised at what follows that for you as well in life.
You mentioned you have a YouTube channel,
I
a
do.
podcast.
I have done podcasts that are on YouTube,
Oh, okay. I
but
thought
I
you,
do
you
not
said
have
you
the
had one.
YouTube
Okay.
channel.
Like,
Um,
how would people reach you if they
so
wanted to?
so what I do is I provide an email that they could reach me on, or they could also reach me through Messenger, which I will be happy to provide you with that. That's what everyone has been doing. I shoot it over as a text and they incorporate it in. I know the first one that we did not incorporate it in. However, the messages that the actual person that did the interview received the messages and reached out to me, and he did post that so that people could have my information if they ever wanted it.
And I think your Facebook has your middle name also, so it'd be easier for people to find.
Yeah, so that's actually, Facebook takes your maiden name. That was actually my maiden name. So it would be Daniella Amoyal Gordan. And that they can reach me through Messenger. And I do provide an email, which is Daniella G 8838 at gmail.com.
Okay, I'll put those in your description too, so people can find them.
Thank you, Peggy. And I have been contacted a lot through email from the different videos. So thank you for providing that. That will eliminate everyone having to get a hold of you to try to get a hold of me.
Yeah, and not everybody listens clear till the end too of the video, so that way it's there if something sparks their interest and they didn't watch it all.
Because any soul that I can help, and keep in mind, this isn't just about mediumship. This is also for health, for spirituality, for happy occasions. These are things that I am able to help people genuinely get such a better quality of life. If I could share with you how many thank yous I receive, not only great testimonials, but the enormous amount of thank yous and the changes and the transformation. And I follow that through because I genuinely care about souls. I genuinely care about a lot of different types of souls, and I would never judge. I just hear and listen, and I can feel a lot and guide them so much better. And so many have excelled. And that is the true blessing here. So I was willing to go through all the horrific accident, all the horrible surgeries, all the therapy, everything. Mind you, I had my son at 5 months pregnant by an emergency C-section. And let me tell you, you could say I was in a coma for 3 days, where they wrapped my blanket, my body in an ice blanket every day. So, not to focus on those things that I went through. The bigger picture here is that I can help a lot of people. And that is the biggest gift out of all of this, is when I see so many more striving and thriving and doing so much better. That's the purpose. And I get that. And I feel blessed for that.
Yeah, we come back, we're not saints, but it seems like we have a little bit of heaven with us.
Yes, we definitely do. I will tell you, I do a lot of things because I have to also re-energize myself. I use a lot of energy. And in the beginning, I used to feel really tired until I learned how to channel, you know, myself and balance myself with it. And I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of really good things. And I've excelled so much. I mean, look, to go through all this and then go back and get your doctorate, that's not
Yes.
easy to do. To be able to sit here and help people 24/7, because mind you, it's all over the world. So I'm dealing with not only Eastern and Pacific and Mountain, I'm dealing with international time zones as well. So this becomes almost 24/7. Um, and because of all the wonderful things I can do for myself to ground myself and balance myself, um, I don't get exhausted. And people always say to me, you know, bless you with everything. How do you do all this? You know, don't you get exhausted? Aren't you going to rest? And I know that I will rest later when I go back there. And while I'm here, this is what I'm supposed to do, even if it's 24/7. And the peace that we bring with us is truly within us. And it's such a blessing.
Yeah.
It is such a blessing.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. I think I just saw you in a Facebook group or something and messaged you. I think that's how I found you. I
Oh,
usually don't go, no? Is
no,
that how I?
I'm in some Facebook groups, and some are just amazing. I have met so many beautiful people and have become friends with some of them that have had different experiences that we can talk and share about, you know, and they share their fears, they share their experience. And I mean, listen, I'm a great person to do it with because I truly understand. I've been there.
I rarely get in those groups. I don't do well. Uh, I call
Really?
bullshit on stuff and it makes people mad.
What,
So
what,
I try to stay out of them.
what do you mean? Like, can you give me an example?
Let's see, well, the other day, let's see, which I think it was, this man said something. I can't think what it was. And it wasn't correct. And I shoot, I can't think what it was. And he ended up getting so mad at me. He even started saying he was screenshotting everything I said in case he did it for further for future court proceedings. I cannot think of what the topic was. What I don't remember what. I think he was trying to say all NDEers, and that's a pet peeve of mine. When someone says all NDEers think like this and this and this, to try to give their political or non-religious or something view
Oh,
credibility.
Peggy, do you remember what I said? This is interesting you bring this up because in the group, there were a couple people that took notice that I don't talk about God, religion, or beliefs. That's been from day one of me coming back here. I just don't incorporate that at all. I don't talk about it. And several have asked, and I've stuck to my gun about it, without opening up conversations to it. Um, but you know, you have to realize though, like your experience, that wasn't about you. That was about the person that was, I guess, personally trying to attack you. And I'm sorry that you had that experience
Oh,
because
I'm used to
most
it. I
of
just
the
stay away from those
yeah,
groups
most
because
of the
I don't
people
do
that
well in them.
yeah, most of the people that I've interacted with have truly been wonderful, really amazing souls. But, you know, again, everyone is on a different journey, everyone is on a different timeline. And
Yeah, because see, that might be the difference too, because I'm a Christian. And so my views are going to be very different than yours. I'm going to see things very differently. And
right, but
I
remember,
feel like
we're talking
Christians are
about
like supposed to be attacked right now for some reason. Like we're the new thing on the chopping block. Oh, there's a
that
Christian,
should
let's get
never
her.
be, that should never be happening. You know, religion is a great guidance, but that's as much as I will say about it. But and I'm sorry you had that experience because I have found that a lot of them are pretty decent. you're always going to have the ones that are going to test, and they're going to try to push buttons and things like that.
Yeah.
But you have to realize too, being the bigger person, the bigger soul with that is, you really have to be mindful of what is it exactly that they're looking for. There's something that they need or that they're looking for. What is that? What is that core thing? So, with most of them, you could probably pick it up, and understand why they're trying to say what they're saying. Please don't ever have like, negative feelings and all, because that's just not going to be good for you in the long run, because that's what you're
Yeah.
going to put around you.
Right.
And or let it scare you. I mean, I've had some comments. Well, actually, I remember when I first posted it, I got over like 2,000 some responses and messages. I mean, my phone was blowing up for days, and I got back to everyone, because to me, everyone is important. But you're going to have the ones that are going to come in from a different light, and that's okay too, because their experience is that different, that they come in and present it that way. And that's the bigger understanding, here. They truly, not any two souls have the same reality and experiences in life. And it's interesting, because I just had a conversation in regards to someone who was a twin that asked me a question about that. And even as similar, even if they're identical twins, and as similar as they are, their reality is going to be very different, because the second they go outside or step out of the house and step out of their surroundings, they're experiencing something totally different. Someone could end up like this, someone could end up like this. So you really have to just look at the bigger picture without judgment, and understand that there's something that they want to know or understand. And if you could break through that, you're going to give that soul more meaning somewhere, somehow, meaning in a way of a better understanding than they could possibly come up with to understand, because understanding is huge here, and it's very neglected. It's very neglected all around, and I see that, and that just saddens me to the core, because it should never be like that. We have a society that likes to label. I mean, I had a client, and I have all ages, and one of them was 4 years old, and I was told that this innocent child was labeled with anxiety and all this other stuff. And it just, to me, that's mind-boggling. So mind-boggling. So, looking at the bigger picture and what's going on, their timeline, their journey, there's a reason for everything. You just have to care enough to appreciate and respect and understand it, and offer anything possible that you can from your soul. But yeah, it's Peggy, there, out of what I was starting to tell you also, out of the 2,000 to 3,000 people, one just came on there not knowing anything, called me a scammer, which I thought was very interesting. And even to that person, I said, I'm really sorry this is how you feel. I don't believe you had any information or any proper knowledge to even start to say something like that, much less in a group like this. It's very offensive to people that have had these experiences. There should be some sensitivity to that. So I was basically turning this negative comment to something bigger, a bigger message. And I still said the person, literally, I said, I'm sending you so much love and so much peace, because they came through this way. And it was, I mean, a lot of people defended me, and didn't like the comment, and some of them just didn't even entertain it, which I respected a lot. But my point is, you're always going to have those kind of souls, and you know what, that's okay too, because those kind of souls also give a lot of contrast in life.
That's usually the ones we learn the most from.
What's
Is
that?
the negative ones are usually the ones we learn the most from.
Well, I had someone ask me a question. We were talking about, this was a whole different subject, and I was explaining to them how I know clearly, for example, murderers vibrate on the absolute lowest uh, vibrational point, and above murderers are really very mentally ill souls. They vibrate right above. So we got into this discussion, and they said, well, you know, if there's, they brought up some religion and stuff, which I'm not going to get into, but the bottom line was, why would we have that here? And again, what a lot of souls don't understand is we need to have that here, because having that here does give you that very true contrast. In other words, you can decipher for yourself between the good and the bad. And our ultimate goal, purpose, however you want to label it, but the understanding is to always be a better soul, do better, always elevate yourself and elevate and elevate. Because at some point, once you get to a certain level of elevating and such good energy, I can't tell you how many souls reach back out to me and say, Daniella, I never saw any of this coming, and how amazing all these beautiful things are entering my world. Well, the point being is we all have a biofield, right? And I mean, people like to call it personal space, but it's your biofield that people are stepping into, and you start to get these different feelings. But the more you bring in to yourself and you put out, that's all that's going to come around you. You know, when you put all that negative, you actually get on a Ferris wheel that just keeps going round and round, and that's all you're entertaining it, you know, with. So you know, I lecture that as well, because it is so important. It is so important to be the best of the best in everything you do. And I'm not saying that in a competitive way. I'm talking about an inner soul. Do the right things, do the good things, address everything through love and caring and respect and understanding. Don't ever judge. Judging people. I know people that have been labeled horrendously, and guess what? They didn't even have that problem, but because they were labeled, it shut them down in their lifetime. That's pretty damaging.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom and your experience, and I'll put your links in the description so people can reach you.
Peggy. It was a pleasure to meet you as well. Please
So-
send me your story. I would love to.
Okay. All right, I
really
will.
would like to hear it, read
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
I'll send you my most recent interview.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have met you.
You too. All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Have a great day.
Bye.